Hear ye, hear ye! The Parliament of Geeks shall now come to order!
And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, back to the Parliament of Geeks, where we ask and answer one simple question. Be it weeb, or be it scrub. I am your one and only gaming monk, better known as Mildra. I do apologize for some of the overlay not showing up because fuck OBS. And as always, I have my two esteemed brothers in this temple. We have the man with way too many screens tonight, Brother Matty.
Hello.
And we have the bane of my fucking existence. No, you only get the short one this time. Good brother Xanatrix. How are we doing tonight, folks? I hope we didn't get cursed again.
God,
lost him. We lost him. He failed.
We're back. We're back, and we're better than ever. And we have the passport thing.
Think, Monk.
I'm here.
Hey.
Okay. Yeah. By the way, the one guy in chat right now is someone who saw me promoting stuff. Apparently.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm gonna refresh the chat so I can see it because I didn't see that comment.
There's like 4.
By the way, I don't have too many screens. That's what happens. See, that's what happens when NFL wants to have too much Monday Night Football. We have Joe Buck. We'll put him on ABC. But what about ESPN? What about ESPN? But you own ESPN. Duh. Okay.
Well, they do, but let's be honest. ESPN is just the Stephen A. Smith show these days.
Stephen A. Smith with a side of pardon the interruption, which occasionally has Stephen A. Smith.
Seriously, it wasn't enough for him to have First Take. He had to have his own Stephen A.'s World show.
Hey, when this is business. Mm-hmm. When business has something that'll work, they'll fucking squeeze the life out of it.
Squeeze the life out of everything.
As long as
if you're Stephen A. Smith, make your fucking money, pal.
But let's be honest. He could do his own. He could do his own pod. He could do his own. He could take the Pat McAfee route and probably make it work out.
He is the kind of guy who he would do name a thing and he'd be just fine.
But putting that aside, getting back onto the rails, ladies and gentlemen, it is time to rise for our drinking anthem.
Score!
Ooh!
Sound it!
It's always good to hear that.
Indeed.
So, last week we had said that our next one was going to be Astra Lost in Space. And good thing too, because we had been doing a lot of fantasy leaning stuff for a while, so it was good to get into something SF that wasn't a massive disappointment. Hi, Shibuya 15. And I know somebody might say, we did Vampire Hunter D, shouldn't that count as science fiction? No, not really. The genre of Vampire Hunter D is yes.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, what's the blast radius of an orbital cannon? Yes.
Yeah. What's the blast radius? Death Star.
Mm-hmm.
Just straight up, Death Star.
Although, as an aside, somebody put together a pile of rust-colored Lego bricks and called it the Lego Alderaan playset.
That's an old meme, but it checks out.
It's an some call it old, I call it classic. An instant
Man, it
classic.
really is old.
And nothing wrong with a classic.
An instant classic, if you will.
God damn it, I miss Christian Cage already.
But there is, before we even get into Astra Lost in Space, there is one bit of weirdness that we ended up digging up when we were doing prep. And that was a announcement from a couple years ago about a second season of Astra, which Zan thought was weird.
I think it's very weird for quite a few reasons, and the first one was being that I had read the manga. I hadn't watched the anime, but I had read the manga, so I had a leg up on these two guys, which made watching the show hard because I had to not expose anything and deliberately plant red herrings. You're welcome, guys.
You bastard.
Hey, would you rather I do that or just spoil everything? I know it's going to be the first one. But the manga and apparently the anime finish at the same place, so why was a season 2 announced? The manga, it isn't likely to get a continuation. It's finished. The story is done. And these news articles that we found said, oh yeah, there's going to be an Astra Lost in Space season 2 as soon as the mangaka writes new chapters. And I'm like, but he's not gonna. He's not gonna. There's no reason for him to.
I'm not sure if mangaka Kenta Shinohara has written anything more recently, but I get the feeling he's more focused on other stories.
Indeed.
And now that we've seen the anime, to quote Phil Lamar, that just raises further questions. and not for the story itself, which we'll get into, but why you would claim to want to do a second season when it wraps up pretty conclusively by the end of this.
It's even got a fucking epilogue.
Now,
Yeah.
as far as the background, this was first off, I do find it amusing that the turnaround between the manga finishing and the anime starting was only about a year.
Well, and that figures. They didn't need, there was enough material there for a nice story, nice and short and sweet.
Unsurprisingly, this story was published in Jump, or I should say, semi-surprisingly, depending on how you view the output of Jump. I know a lot of people look at Jump as just shonen battle manga, which certainly has its footprint, but that's not the only thing in there. In fact, there's some particularly oddball stuff that's been in Jump over the years. But the animation studio, I think a lot of people can be forgiven for assuming that Sunrise animated this, but that's not the case. This was instead animated by Lersch, and I am probably mispronouncing it because it's German, which is a brand of Studio Hibari, and their first entry was back in 2011, Maji de Watashi ni Koi Shinasai. But I think a lot of people are going to know them for handling the animation work of Danganronpa, and more recently handling Classroom of the Elite.
Of course, they also handled the animation for something we've also reviewed here, Assassination Classroom.
They and one particular project that I'd like to cover, but it doesn't meet our criteria, and that is actually, you know what? Never mind. Kino's Journey does meet our criteria, so maybe that'll be on the table down the road.
Kino's Journey. I would like to point out that Kino's Journey is interesting in the fact that it's OVA. It's an OVA. It's an ongoing light novel that still hasn't finished. So, we have an OVA, we have a few films, and then we have a TV series. So I think it's a little longer than our criteria monk.
Also responsible for Carnival Phantasm, aka what happens when Type Moon and company just decide to go, let's do something really stupid.
I mean, was it really stupid?
Well, there were certain jokes that could certainly qualify, like say, yeah, send Berserker out to go get batteries. What could possibly go wrong?
I mean, this is Natsu
fan.
we're talking about after all.
She
or he, we still don't really know that well. We assume, in many ways, I'm pretty sure, to be honest. But you never know.
Yeah.
The Natsu-verse, the Type Moon universe, whatever you want to call it, the place is fucked up on its own, monk.
Yeah, it was just what happens.
Carnival Phantasm fits right in.
It also kind of doubled down on the many deaths of Lancer.
Specifically, Kuhulen.
Yeah. And if that sounds weird, just remember, Gaelic is where our understanding of pronunciation goes to die sometimes.
I'm going to tell you what 2 D's sounds like in Gaelic. It sounds like a soft TH. I'm going to tell you what 2 F's sound like in Gaelic. It's a V.
This is why I'm glad that this is why I find it. I'm glad that nobody gets on me whenever I mispronounce Gaelic. I'm also glad that I also find it hilarious when people get on me for mispronouncing Chinese for the same reason.
What's really funny is that there's another V sound in Gaelic. It's BD or BDH. The Maeve, as she's called, most people accidentally call the Mabd.
Mm-hmm.
It always fucking pisses me off. I'm like, she's the Maeve. Please stop that.
Urge to Zan Rising. By the way, all that language talk in my head hurts. So, Rails?
I mean, this is still technically Rails. A little bit. Kind of.
Rails, and let's not forget that among us, you're the Maddie. You're the closest thing we have to a polyglot.
Polyglot.
God.
Someone who speaks multiple languages.
I'm only bilingual, technically.
This is true, which is...
I'd like to be trilingual. I'd like to learn Japanese, but, money.
Yeah, I understand how that is.
Anyway.
Wakarimashita.
For the TV series of Astra, the director is Masanomi Ando, who unfortunately does not have a Wikipedia page.
Let me see if I can find some stuff about Masanomi Ando. With my sources and my digging.
Well, he's got an IMDb, but you know how it is with IMDb. You got to take this with a grain of salt.
Yeah, that's
also,
why.
Yeah, so basically, you're doing the Joe Bob challenge.
Mm-hmm.
Google that fucker. You should always just Google that fucker.
Mm-hmm.
I did find a Masanomi Ando on ANN.
Mm-hmm. And I found one on MAL.
There's a lot of stuff where he was a episode director, and storyboarder, but only for specific episodes.
Yeah. Although he did do stuff for more recent stuff, Jibaku Shonen Hanako-kun, or, the toilet
Say it,
boy.
rip it and rip it, bud.
Toilet-bound boy Hanako-kun.
God, yeah, I don't blame him for the cringe. That is definitely cringe.
Well, it's about the spirit that haunts the toilets. One of the famous urban legends around Japanese schools.
Didn't we cover that in a previous episode?
No.
Wasn't there an episode of something we covered on this show?
No. We covered Karis, which a guy got stuck in the toilets when a kappa was killing, a camera crew there, but not the same thing.
Close enough.
No, it's not.
But
that's a little bit too much mental gymnastics for my taste.
Yeah.
Fair.
A lot of shows have a thing where the director is cycled in and out. I feel like this is one of those cases because what I was able to find when it came to Ando, he's only handled a handful of episodes, never directed a full series.
He has in more recent stuff, and it looks like it's stuff that's associated with Lach, which is Lark. So,
by the way, you oohed and awed there a little bit while Monk was talking.
Yeah, that's because I discovered that he's also Masaoki Ando is also associated with Rumble Garandol, or as it's called in Japanese, Gyakuten Sekai no Denshi Shoujo, which literally translates to the I guess the turnaround world of electric girls.
Oh.
like we called it Rumble Garandol for I have no idea why, probably because the Garan are the giant mecha in the show. But everyone who knows about Ace Attorney knows that its name is Gyakuten Saiban in Japanese, which means turnabout courtroom or reversal courtroom. And so Gyakuten Sekai no Denshi Shoujo would so Denshi should more accurately read battery, and anyone who's watched Kyoryuger knows that one.
Yeah.
Ju Denshi, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's literally battery girls of the turnabout world. It's
That was
which
the trails we've had in a while there, Monk.
I wish they had kept that name, to be honest. Rumble Garandal is so boring sounding.
Yeah, compared to what you just translated, yeah.
But the point is, I think Ando is primarily associated with Larch. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing that correctly.
It's German.
It is German. Let's find out. How's that pronounced?
It's supposed to be the German word for lark.
It is the German word for lark, and it's Lerche. Or, well, that's as good as I'm getting. If any of my German friends are watching, fuck you.
Yeah, if we mispronounce it, leave a comment about it, but leave the comment in German.
Google translate that fucker.
You've already played the button once. We don't need more.
I know I'm not hitting it so many times. Don't worry about it.
But as I said before, if I didn't know any better, I think it's completely fair of me to assume that this was animated by Sunrise or Sunrise Beyond.
Yeah, it does have the same animation hallmarks that you generally see from their neck of the woods.
And if I wanted to really do some digging, I check if there were any ex-Sunrise animators on the team for this. I don't think that there are, but if there are, I would just nod and say, yeah, that checks out.
I mean, I'm still already on my anime list, so I'm sure I can check. If we go to Kanata no Astra, which is the Japanese name, literally meaning Astra of Kanata, or Kanata's Astra, meaning he owns it. I mean, it's true, he owns it! But,
yeah.
Let's see here. Staff. Look at the list of staff.
Now, I will note that the opening and the ending are just okay. Like I wouldn't say I'd say when it comes to the opening, the visuals stand out more than the actual song.
Yes, because the visuals change every episode.
Yeah.
They do, and it's a smart play to do it too.
Whenever it comes to openings that change as the story progresses, there are always two anime that I bring up as kind of the benchmark for me with that kind of thing. Scried and Gun X Sword.
Yep.
Scride's a good example, actually. If you've never seen Scride, you folks should watch Scride. And I'm not even the anime guy here, so
especially since if you're gonna do it, the discotheque version is easy to get.
oh yeah.
And that's not me. That's not me shilling for discotheque, because we already have somebody else in the temple who does that for us.
Hi, Cure. How are you?
But
Hey, I don't mind roasting. I just want to roast.
But what's interesting is that the first character that we see in Astra is Ares Spring, who is packing up for planetary camp. And when I heard about camp, I just ended up getting flashbacks to those summer camps I spent every year at for a good few years.
Yep.
And the time I almost got thrown out of one of them because I messed with one of the teacher's eggs so that it was too hard. When I say hard, I mean I made the thing rock hard. It was supposed to be a soft-boiled egg. The thing was hard. The thing was hard enough that it just plopped off the plate. Trying to open the thing. Uh, of course, never let me around a whistle whenever I know where the bathroom is.
No, no. Like an air horn.
Yeah,
You think
obviously.
it's safe? Honk!
Yep. It's a good.
By the way, Aries is the ditz. You will find that very quickly.
Yeah, and she we did have that instance of a purse snatcher in the spaceport, which is definitely an improvement over every airport I've ever been in. Doesn't matter what state or country it's in. I hate every single airport.
They only made the airport look less crowded because it looks prettier that way. You realize that spaceports would be just as crowded, if not more so, than airports.
Yeah,
Artistic license is liberally used here.
but
Mm-hmm.
but through that purse snatcher thing was just a means to introduce the true protagonist, that being Kanata Hoshijima and his anti-gravity shoes.
And his ability to completely fuck up his own attack name.
Oh.
When he tries to say ultimate dive bomb, he instead messes up everything. And this isn't just in the English.
No,
It's in the Japanese. When you see the katakana on the screen, it's all messed up. Thank you.
This is a sign of things to come because, you know, in the early days of Geek Watch, we talked about the concept of the idiot red or the idiot leader.
He was the idiot leader at the beginning.
And yet, for reasons we'll get into later, he didn't annoy me as much as, say, Lucky or Wrong
No.
or Makaharu.
Yeah, you're Bakaharu, dumbass from Nin Ninja. No, he is not. He is not dumbass from Nin Ninja.
Yeah.
And for those of you who like Nin Ninja, I don't blame you. You have the right as a citizen of the world to be wrong. But for those of us say it's Takaharu, dumbass.
Yeah. But
Always and forever.
after they end up getting to the planet Mikpa, where the camp is going to be held, which, as an aside, this particular setting already has casual FTL travel, because I think
Very casual, in fact.
to the point that it's pretty much treated like you would treat a terrestrial flight. It just takes a lot longer.
Then again, this is the future, so fair play.
A future.
But it's not. Shortly after they end up getting there, we have big white ball of death.
Big white glowy ball of death.
With a nice creamy darky center.
Which and
Phrasing.
but it isn't a ball of death. It's a ball of transport.
It's a teleportation ball.
Because
Of course, where it teleports them to is still a death zone.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And-
Kanata had a big brain play, a galaxy brain play. Put your helmets back on!
Yep.
Yeah.
Because
Good talk, kid.
they get teleported into low orbit. By sheer luck, they manage to find a nearby ship that manages to work. Although we have one of the more heroism moments with Kanata, since everybody but Ares was able to make it on board.
Because her jets, her propulsion jets on her crush suit, as they're called.
Her shit fucked up.
Yeah, her radio didn't work, and her crush suit jets didn't work, so she couldn't get to the thing at all. So we had this big damn hero moment, not just with Kanata, but with everybody in the end, of Kanata going out there with a length of cable on an end of a winch and the rest of the crew holding it. And he gets to her and he realizes he can't reach because the winch just isn't long enough. So he unclips, catches her, aims back towards the ship, fires his own jets with the last of their fuel, and they drift. And as they're getting closer, it actually looks like they're still going to miss the ship. Mm-hmm. And that's when everybody forms a chain of hands to catch them.
We've all played with the barrel of monkeys. Phrasing.
Oh, yeah. Boom, both monks out.
Yeah. But even though you have a winning moment with everyone on the ship, things end up setting in for how screwed they really are. Because one, even though there's some supplies on the ship and they don't really have to worry about fuel because of the passive fuel generation that the ship has.
It allegedly has some way to scoop out fusion materials to throw into the fusion reactor and initiate light speed travel. Mm-hmm. But there's no food or water aboard. And they're hovering over a giant ice ball planet, so there's no getting food or water from there.
Long story short, they only have enough for a couple of days. For 3 days.
And they are 5,012 light years away from home.
Yep.
Long story short, longer than 3 days.
Yeah. They also determined that at most they could only carry 20 days worth of food and water, even if they had the supplies. So in that case, they've determined that they still wouldn't be able to make it home if they were full up.
Mm-hmm. And just for the record, in order to understand, those of you who are familiar with SF will know this kind of thing, but just to illustrate how fucked that is, 1 light year is about 6 trillion miles.
Yeah.
That is 1 light year.
5,012 light years is outside of the Sagittarius arm of the Milky Way and into a different arm. Mm-hmm. At least from Earth to somewhere else, if we were measuring in that respect.
Yeah. And while everybody seems to have taken the downer with this, the one exception is Kanata, who ends up there's one line that gets repeated a few times in the first episode, and that is when things get hard, act tough. Something that he learned from his teacher. A teacher that it was a mentor to him that died on a camping trip or backpack hike through some mountains when a big old landslide hit. Mm-hmm. Also, this is the start of Kanata spouting his bullshit survival tips. Yeah, he has. This is a running gag with him. He spouts out these survival tips that are either really obvious or really stupid.
If you don't move forward, then you don't get anywhere. No shit, Captain Obvious!
By the way, this will be a running motif.
Yeah.
The Kanata is Captain Dumb Breaks Obvious.
Yep. I think at this point, though, Monk, with that in all established, with the premise established, the trek home, where they have to, obviously because they have to find food and water and they have to continue to maintain it, it's a stop-by-stop thing. Mm. They plot a course from planet to planet to planet until it gets them to home. And with that premise in mind, I think it's a good idea to introduce the rest of our ensemble.
Yeah, we've already talked about Kanata, who can be a dumbass, but I'd say it's more that he's simple. I think the big reason that his stupidity doesn't annoy us is the fact that for one he's not a complete idiot, and mm-hmm. two, when it comes to the survival tips, people call him out. People call him on his bullshit.
And it's actually pretty clear that the reason he's using those...
Shit.
Oh, yeah. it's pretty clear that the reason he's even making those survival tips is so that people are united, which is why they eventually decide on him being a captain for their crew.
Yeah, for as much of an idiot as he is, he is good at getting people motivated into a certain direction. We already mentioned briefly Aries Spring, who is a bit of an airhead, but has a photographic. but there's a couple other things to note with her. One, much like with Kanata, while she can be an airhead, she isn't a complete idiot. Two, she has a photographic memory, and unlike some shows that would bring that up, this actually has a purpose, which we will get into. And three, she's technically heterochromatic.
Her eyes are 2 different shades of green.
Yeah.
Which, side note, heterochromia is the most typical and common mutation in humans. Just so you know.
I have heard stories of near tetrachromatic women in some parts of the world, but that is really rare.
Very indeed. Also, for your cosplayers out there who are hoping to have 2 different colored eyes for that unit cosplay, unfortunately, you can't fuck around with genetics. With genetics yet.
But another important thing about Aries is she is the brightness within the party in many cases.
She is.
When everybody else tries to, is getting down, and not even Kanata can really bring them up, her constant faith in things is able to bolster Kanata and the others to the point where Kanata's encouragement works. She's very much the Blue Lantern of the group.
Then we have Luca.
Luca Esposito,
the troll of the group.
and the Tinkerer,
God.
and the Tinkerer.
Oh yeah.
Luca's pretty cool. Luca has established a troll, but also just kind of that person. He wants to have fun. Wants everybody to have a good time, and he also likes tinkering with stuff. He turns a giant asparagus in one of the first planets into a spear. We'll get more into that later, though.
Yeah, that's eventually.
Yeah, then we have Charles Lacroix, the pretty boy.
Charles Lacroix. The biologist pretty boy.
And I'm not making the pretty boy thing because he's blonde, because that's not a blonde joke. I do it because there's multiple times where he ends up having the sparkles on his head.
Yep, the literal sparkles around his eyes and smile. So definitely the Ikemen effect. Yep.
He literally fucking sparkles.
Yep. He is the Ikemen. One of the 2 Ikemen of the group, I should say.
Yeah.
Because there's another one. But we'll get to him soon.
But then there is Quiteri. Kitri. The way it's spelled and the way it sounds just throw me the fuck off.
Well, the way it's spelled and the way it sounds is more Latin than it is English. So, yeah. Kitri, yes. In fact, it's Italian because her last name is Raffaelli.
But she was the one who we warmed up to the slowest.
They warmed up to the slowest.
Oh, Kiteri, this is the
She was the one who you had go away heat with early on.
Oh, she was. No joke, folks. And I forgot to make the Sadler and Waldorf bun where I go from I hate this to love this. She was a big. She and Aries were a big reason where I'm like, fuck this fucking show early on. Too much of an airhead, and this one too much of a. Are we allowed to say the C word here?
Yes.
Too much of a goddamn cunt.
Can't understand normal thinking.
Yeah.
But there are other things that, besides her being a snarky bitch, that also show a surprising side to her, especially early on, which is good. It happened early on, and I'm very happy that it happened early on, because I was like,
God,
are these...
it happened early
No,
on.
I was thinking to myself, are these guys going to be able to hold out on this show? It's just like when I have to tell everybody, no, Grid is actually a really cool character. Just get past the first 100 chapters of Overgeared, and you'll find out.
This is the same thing. This was the same thing with Kamen Rider Drive and all that stuff. This is pretty much simply, oh, she gets better in like 2/3 of the show. Fuck that! I quit.
100 chapters of Overgeared is like the first 17th of the book.
But she did warm up, and she does play a bit of a role.
Same thing with me and Kamen Rider Saber.
Yeah.
But it gets better. Fuck that. Get better now. But that's another story.
But she does end up acting as essentially the doctor of the ship.
She's our Bones McCoy.
Mm-hmm. But she's a little too young for whiskey.
She's our Bones McCoy with tits.
Yeah, Monk. I'm not going to dispute that. Mm-hmm. I don't think we should dispute that.
Nope.
I was hoping to give you a nightmare mental image, though. Did it work?
Rule 63, Bones McCoy.
You're right. That does give me nightmares.
No, I don't mean Rule 63, Bones McCoy. I just mean literally Bones McCoy with tits.
I hate
Damn
you.
it, damn it. I'm a doctor, not a cross-dresser.
That's not helping. Then we have Zach Wong.
Congratulations! You're an asshole!
Wow, that's a deep cut.
Right? The fun was right there. I'm like, that's too goddamn convenient. I have to hit it now.
But Zach is the closest thing. I'd say he's the straight man.
He's the straight man, except when he isn't.
Yeah.
But we'll get to that.
He's a wonderful straight man, but when he is not, oh my Jesus, the joke bombs.
No, it's not that the joke bombs. It's that he becomes the deadpan snarker.
Yo, good lord. He is Her Majesty, her late Majesty, this Queen's dry wit.
Essentially, Zach is the second Ikemen I was referencing. Mm-hmm. He's our other pretty boy, but whereas Shars is bubbly and sparkly, very warm Ikemen, this is your cold, aloof, glasses-wearing, white-haired senpai. Please notice me, Ikemen. It's Kyoya from Oron High School Host Club, but with white hair and a different name.
I can't help but feel like one of them having blonde hair and one of them having white hair is supposed to be a gold and silver gag.
Black hair. Kyoya had black hair. It's a black and white gag.
Yeah. Well, not with Kyoya, but with
Shars
and Zach.
Gold and silver. Yeah. That could be. That absolutely could be. But you'd have to ask the mangaka.
But then we have Phoenicia,
who is Kitri's little sister,
but
adopted.
Little cinnamon bun.
Yes, except for the fact that she also has the comedy dog as her
the puppet
as a fucking puppet.
And Tokyuja at this point.
Yep.
Blunt AF. I like that puppet.
Yeah, it allegedly speaks what she's actually thinking from what was mentioned in early episodes.
Although, given how puppetry works, whether or not that's actually the case is open to interpretation.
Yeah, she's Kitri's adopted little sister, but they still look somewhat alike. They even have the same purple eyes and blonde hair.
Mm-hmm. Then we have edgy boy Olgar.
Which, if you look into the grand scheme of things, goddamn, that's a good bit of foreshadowing right there.
In the business, we call this foreshadowing. But Then we have Elgar Zweg, who's the Edgelord.
Olgar Sveg, yep. Olgar is our dark and brooding lone hero type.
Goth AF. And
not really goth, more emo punk.
yeah, emo punk. Goth punk, emo punk, don't give a fuck punk.
He's even got the whole hair swept over one eye thing because he's that kind of douche.
Yeah.
Yep.
But we find out he's really good at spatial calculations by eye, whereas Zach can do spatial calculations really quickly on any computer. Because Zach is a bit of a genius when it comes to, well, computers and piloting. Mm-hmm. Whereas Olgar, it's more physical things for him. And we also learn a couple other things about why his spatial awareness is so good later on.
Yep. Then we have Yunhua Lu.
Yes. My first red herring for y'all. Yunhua is a very quiet, shy, and not even introspective, but reclused girl. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Very much sinks into herself, tries not to stand out. And there's reasons for that as well.
Yep.
At first, when we first meet her, she kind of just seems like the normal Joe of the group. Like, there's nothing really that special about her.
She is. If there's a dark corner where it's secluded and can be left alone, she was probably in that corner. Mm-hmm. She is that much of a recluse, and recluse is the right name, is the right word for this, because she could not care less if you want to be a friend. There's something in her mind that says must not make friends, must not take attention, must not produce attention. I am not an attention whore.
Yeah, she very much shies away from everyone at first.
Yeah,
and this is our initial crew. This is the people that we get to go on to the first planet after leaving the ice ball, 3 days away, planet Vilaverse. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm going to note ahead of time, every planet is an anagram.
Yep.
Some of the planets are not just anagrams, but they're also double meanings. Mm-hmm. This first one is Planet Survival.
And one of the other things that is hammered home very early on is beware. Do not trust the wildlife, no matter how benign it may look. Because I can assure you that the benign-looking plants aren't.
It's very simple. It's the quiet ones you got to watch. Literally that. And no, this is not a take on the George Carlin joke where it's like, well, when you watch the quiet ones, the real loud ones will fucking kill you. No, the loud ones will kill you too, but the quiet ones, yeah, they'll murder you more.
Mm-hmm.
It's on Vilaverse that we first get our asparagus spear, the Luca Lance. Mm-hmm. And we see some of the fauna. Most of the fauna don't look too bad. There's the big flying megafauna that don't really come to bug them at all. And most of the plants they have specific mechanisms, some really cool stuff, like there being a very springy tree. But none of the plants are actively trying to kill them either. It really is like going into a jungle expedition.
Mm-hmm. And Keitra had this was also where we end up uncovering one theme with the cast. With the exception of Ares, all their parents are assholes.
All their parents have treated them like absolute shit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is where you're starting to wonder. Why are the parents? Yeah, we get to that scene and you wonder, wait, why are the parents being dicks? They're not supposed to be dicks. But
Yeah.
why? Why you got to be dicks?
Yeah. Kitri reveals that her mom never really treated her like mom, and kind of just treated her as like, you need to achieve things, and I'm too busy. I got to go do work. And even when she brought home Phoenicia, she's like, you got to treat her like a little sister, and I've got to still go do work. Kind of forcing Phoenicia on Kitri, which didn't set well for Kitri, even though in the end, when the big blow-up happens between Funi and Kitri, and Funi runs off, Kitri breaks the fuck down.
Yeah.
Like, she knows that the only reason she's been pushing, Funi away is because of the way her mom treats her, but she really wishes she hadn't. She loves her little sister, despite being the massive mega bitch that she had been.
Yeah. There is a. I don't want to say tsundere, but am I correct in sensing those vibes?
It's not really tsundere with her. It's not really the same way there. It's more. This is actually something that is more akin to real hallmarks of trauma in real life.
Yeah.
She estranges others because she herself does not want to be estranged anymore. It's an abandonment issue.
Would you say Hedgehog's dilemma applies?
Yes, absolutely. The Hedgehog's dilemma would apply here. It's not necessarily tsundere because it's not like she's like that all the time, which would be just a constant character trait. It's absolutely a mark of trauma.
Yeah.
A very well fleshed out one too, I might add. The writers did a fantastic job with it.
Yeah, but when Phoenicia decides to go off on her own because of that blow up, she ends up getting stuck on one of the plants going a bit high up. And
yeah, it turns out that the bouncy plants the bouncy trees they found earlier are bouncy because they're elastic to reach towards the falling sunlight when it's starting to go dark.
They have to. They have to go way up to get enough sunlight to get to the end of the night.
Yep. And despite how dangerous it is, Kanata ends up using the Luca lance as a javelin to get to save her. And this
not just as a javelin, as a pole vault as well.
Yep. And
we were having a couple of Tremors jokes. You guys like the pole vault?
And this is where one thing about Kanata is revealed is that he was trained to be a world-class athlete by his old man.
Specifically a decathlete. He was the head of a decathlon. In fact, Zach finally remembers everything when he puts all the pieces together. Whoa, that's the kid that survived that field trip and is a world-class decathlon. Now I remember where I've heard his name.
But a pattern that we saw earlier, and we're going to keep seeing, is Kanata being the first to jump straight into danger
because of his misgivings about having been too weak to save his mentor. He never wants to feel that way again, so he'll always do everything to make sure it never happens.
But after the reconciliation with these sisters, this is also where we get the mystery that is going to occupy a good chunk of the story, because somebody cut the communication system in the Astra.
It's been cut out and is non-functional, so they can't try and send a long-range light-speed message or faster than light-speed message back to their home.
Yes, it had been sabotaged.
Yep, which means somebody on the ship is trying to get rid of them.
Yep, there was an enemy among them. I served up that cue for you really well.
Kind of had to on this point, Zan. I think at this point, it's yeah.
So we have an imposter amongst the crewmates, but nobody's going to get vented.
Again,
Well, I know.
But
But we
But
We aren't getting vented.
At this point, the thing is, the mindset is somebody did it, but there's not enough evidence to know who did it, so don't start anything unless you have to.
Which is a good mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much.
Well, and Olgar reveals that he's the son of the vice principal, which puts some suspicion on him. But after that, they end up having to land on planet Shumor, which, what was the anagram this time around?
Shumor was the anagram for mushroom.
Which certainly makes sense. While they have to make a descent because of micrometeorites that they got hit with.
It's where we learn that Olgar's spatial awareness is because he's a crack shot with that glue gun.
Mm-hmm.
He manages to help plug up a hole near the gravity generator so that they can land without fucking dying.
Yep. And it was also revealed that Olgar has a real handgun as well.
That he got from the storage area of the Astra, though no one saw him take it, so it's only revealed to us that he has it.
Yeah.
The audience is aware, the cast is not.
But when they do get on Shumor, and remind me, I think by this point they had already invented a device to determine whether or not a food was edible or not.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was originally voiced by Zach, and it sounded weird, so he had other crew members voice it, such as Shars, Ares, and Funi.
Mm-hmm. And while they find plenty of food on Shumor, the food doesn't last very well.
It spoils real fucking quick.
Mm-hmm. But this was when we have our revelation moment with Yunhua. Since she decided to desert the ship at this time.
Yep, she deserted the ship because she felt that she was useless, and our resident bitch even called her useless.
Mm-hmm.
Though she didn't mean it.
She didn't mean it in that way, but she came off as a cunt.
Mm-hmm.
But
which is a pattern.
But if that isn't bad enough, then things got worse because of the revelation of why there's so many bones and the like around some of the bigger mushrooms.
Yep.
Yeah, they're not super. Yeah, they're if you wanted. Well, we're not gonna. I'm not gonna. I don't have too many Super Mario buttons, but for those playing Mario the Lost Levels, yeah, if you know, you know.
Yep, poisonous spores, which managed to get all but Kanata and Yunhua, who had their suits on at the time.
And anybody who was in the ship, but although the people in the ship started getting affected slowly as well in the end.
Because spores can spread real fast.
Indeed.
But there was the memory of feeding a sick, what they call a gruppy, a yellow mushroom that cured it.
Yep. Yunhua had found it.
Yeah, and admittedly, this could be. The way Kanata ends up getting the yellow mushroom could be considered the one ass pull in the show.
I don't consider it an ass pull. I consider it no, I do consider it an ass pull, and I also consider it his
convenient ass pull.
I also consider it his probably the moment he was most as an idiot red.
Yeah, because that was pure fucking luck.
His idea of I'll poison myself to try to see if that can reveal the mushroom.
Yeah, Shars came up with this big long hypothesis that the population is controlled by the largest mushrooms that release these death spores and attract the bodies of things like the gruppies to the base of the large mushrooms by distributing the antidote to their poisonous spores. But there's only so many in order to control the population of all the food available. Ultimately, Kanata is like, he's looking for it. He's like, where are the mushrooms? Where are the mushrooms? And he's like, it's not giving me any mushrooms because it doesn't think I'm poisoned. And he opens his helmet like a fucking retard, and and he
yeah.
and he gets poisoned. But a bunch of the curative mushrooms grow, so he picks them all, gets back to the ship with the help of a gruppy, and everybody is cured. It is at the same point where everybody is in pain while Kanata is going out to do this that Yunhua starts singing for the crew. And this is after she's told Kanata that her dream is to be a singer, but her mom always told her never to stand out. And Kanata is like, well, why is that? Your mom's a famous singer. Why can't you?
This will become a common theme.
As I said earlier, in the business, this is what we call foreshadowing.
Yeah. But Yunhua's singing really helps to soothe the pain, the people who are experiencing massive amounts of pain due to their poisoning. And well, Kanata gets back with the mushrooms in time, and everybody's cured.
Yep. And afterwards, we do have a bit of a meanwhile back home, where the authorities
Meanwhile, at the Legion of Doom
have given up on finding the students after searching Mikpa, and the parents are a little bit too willing to declare their kids legally dead, except for Aries' mom, who ends up pushing back against it, but she's completely outvoted.
Yeah. She's like, but we shouldn't give up on our children, and the rest of them are just like, well, it's been, over a month. They're dead. We should just declare them. And it doesn't go over so well with Aries' mom, for sure.
The only person who isn't there is Luca's father, Marco.
Because he's currently going to register for something called the Genome Registration Act. Because it was something he voted against. He didn't support it. But since it's come into law, he has to go and register his genome with the government.
Mm-hmm. I know I keep saying this, but in the business, this is what we call foreshadowing.
Long story short, clones illegal. Ish.
And genetic tampering and all those other things that have to do with the genome.
Mm-hmm.
You're not allowed to fuck around with them. So they keep a record on you.
Yeah. As a bit of an aside, after Yunhua was able to come out of her shell, she asked Luca to get to help her with a haircut.
Yep.
And in the meantime, they end up arriving at a majority ocean world called Arispade Paradise.
Mm-hmm.
Which they consider that because this is where they can have the closest thing to a beach episode.
It's a really good beach episode too.
Along with a fair bit
episode too, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Along with a fair bit of food and a bit of a drop of parthenogenesis.
Parthenogenesis?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Parthenogenesis, the genesis of things almost asexually, basically.
Mm-hmm. And
more lore.
Yep. But things end up going south because Luca ends up revealing who his father is. And and it is a shock to Olgar. And then near the end of it, when they're going to celebrate their last night on Arispad, Olgar holds Luca at gunpoint, which was a hell of a
Olgar
cliffhanger.
goes from edgelord to murder, or attempted murder.
And in the episode after, he explains that his older brother was murdered by Marco for getting a little bit too close in his investigation.
His brother was an investigative journalist, a real journalist, not like what we have today.
Yeah, at least in the States. In Canada, there are some legit investigative journalists out there. Not too many, but they are there.
But his brother eventually tells him at one point that he got close to something real big, bigger than everyone. And it was after that his, brother died. And his father, Olgar's father, who is also the principal of the high school that they're all from, told him, "I wish you were the one that had died."
Ow!
Once again, continuing the trend of parents who are complete and utter dickbags.
And again, I think at this point, it's not foreshadowing. It's literally beating you upside the head with the message.
Yeah, but his mindset is if I can't kill Marco, I'll kill his heir.
Yep. And then Luca reveals, "I'm not Marco's heir because, I'm adopted for one, and for two, I'm a mutant." And by a mutant, Luca means that they are intersex, having sexual characteristics of both sexes.
He was adopted before his condition was discovered, and was disowned when his younger brother was born.
Pretty much.
And that ends up being enough for Olgar to at least stop with his revenge plot. But no good deed goes unpunished in this story, because the island's hit by a quake, and a quake in the ocean usually means tsunamis.
And it's a one small island in a whole ass world made of water. So, yeah. You can imagine big fucking wallow water of death.
Yep. But after Olgar had planned on sacrificing himself to make sure that Luca could get out alive, Kanata had other ideas.
Once again, dropping out of the Astra to save somebody, but this time because they're in gravity, it's Kanata the Claw game. You can't tell me that none of you were thinking the same fucking thing when he drops out like that and scoops up fucking Olgar.
I'm going to stop you right there and just say I have the Kirby's Adventure Claw game theme going in my head right now.
Hey, at the very least, it's a claw game you can actually win.
True. Very true.
But his resolve is to return home alive so he can investigate what actually happened. And Zack brings up that what he found out may have been bigger than just corruption. And this is where we further put in the concept that everybody was targeted for some sort of assassination.
Yep. But we don't know why.
Someone brought for us at camp, big glowy orb that transported into space. Turns out, yeah, that was supposed to be a death orb.
But after this, Ares ends up speaking with Shars, and she brings up some parts of his story are a bit inconsistent. Says he talked about being in in the same biology class that she was in, but she has a photographic memory. If she saw him, she'd remember that.
It gets a little gets a little tense until he explains, yeah, I only transferred in basically 4 days before the trip left. Mm-hmm. And he explains that he's ex-nobility from the only place on their planet that still has governments of monarchy, Vixia.
Which I would end up making jokes about Vixia being House Davion.
or from some of the shots, Planet Druidia.
Fair.
Set up on this one, boys. Shush.
But he tells the story about how he had befriended a girl named Saria, and brought her into the noble area to show her the zoo. They got caught.
Yep.
She resisted and was pushed off a building, falling into a coma.
Yep.
And after that, her family left Vixia, taking Saria with them. And it wasn't too long after that Shars left as well to learn biology so he could heal Saria. Which ends up turning the suspicion dial down with everybody else.
For now.
Mm-hmm.
But it's with us leaving Arispad and hitting Icarus. Yes, you heard that right. Icarus, almost close to Icarus. And if you rearrange,
close to the goddamn sun again.
And if you take the anagram, it's crisis.
Look, we've already put a whole lot of bubblegum prices on the wheel. I cannot bribe the monk. He is unbribable, okay?
No, your checks just bounce every time because they're never enough.
Oh, you wish I could afford the amount of money that I could afford to bribe him enough.
Oh.
It's like DACA. There isn't enough.
Mm-hmm. But the reason why the Icarus part is so apt is because of the way the rotation works. It's in sync with its sun. It's
so for those of you who are familiar with terms in astronomy, it's tidally locked with its star, meaning that one side of the planet always faces the star and one side of the planet always faces away. The spin does not spin faster than the orbital rotation of the planet itself.
Mm-hmm. So literally one side hot, one side cold.
And a tiny equatorial strip of safe zone.
Mm-hmm. And
which is where
go ahead.
Which is where everything grows.
And as they try and land, they end up getting attacked by a big fucking plant.
A big fucking plant. So big that it actually grows out and fucking grabs the ship.
Mm-hmm. And that significantly damages the Astra and pretty much makes breaking orbit impossible.
They have atmospheric flight, but because the reactors and everything else are damaged, they have no way to go into space.
Mm-hmm. But Shars later on leads a foraging party while everyone is thinking, okay, we're stuck here, so this is basically going to be our home from now on. But Shars leads a foraging party and finds a second ship similar to the Astra. In fact, it's almost a 1-to-1 copy, except it looks like it's been a little long in the tooth.
Yep, it's a little older.
Mm-hmm.
And then he goes back or then he sends somebody to go find Kanata and Zack, who are still back at the Astra, to bring them along. And they go in, but not after a very interesting exchange between Zack and Kitri. Kitri is freaking out because she is never going to get home. She's understandably distressed.
Her shit.
Yeah. And Zack says, well, this is our new home. We'll just have to make our home together. And Kitri, of course, is still forlorn. So, Kanata and Zack then pitch to her, you could always stay in the one stasis capsule the ship has and turn on the repeater rescue beacon and see if anybody comes to save you. If that's really what you want to do. And she actually seems freaked out by that more so. Like, she stops crying, but she doesn't have a happy look on her face.
She's like, oh, fuck. Like, she wants to live, but she wants to die. And she's like, oh, fuck, that's like rocking a hard place.
I don't think that she wants to die. It's that she wants to get home, but she'd also rather not be alone.
Again, rocking a hard place.
Mm-hmm. And and that ends up being a bit of a Chekhov's gun, because when Shars leads that party, he finds that in the ship that looks exactly like the Astra, somebody's in the hibernation pod and has been in there for 12 years.
12 years. And I remember saying, to try and throw these guys off, wormholes, time and space travel. Could this be Keytree?
You fucking fuck.
I had to do something!
You didn't have to do jack shit.
Yes, I did.
We didn't even know. We weren't even thinking time travel at that point. We're thinking, well, that's a thing.
Now, fortunately, we didn't do time travel, but it's understandable why he decided to throw that red herring in.
Wormholes, time and space.
Mm-hmm. But in reality, she is Polina Levinskaya.
Polina Levinskaya.
My Russian is not very good. And
very Russian name. And very bad attempt at a Russian accent.
Yeah. But she claims that she is an astronaut from the ship Arc 6.
And the discovery of the ship also reminds Zach that the Arc series are modular. Mm-hmm. And they can rip off the intact bridge and fusion reactor portion of the Arc 6 and attach it to the intact engineering and residential blocks of their ship, the Astra, and have a fully functioning ship again.
But she also doesn't take too well to the fact that she's been asleep 12 years and it's the year 2063.
She is definitely hitting the doubt that she is pressing X.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that she's pressing X, it's more incredulity than anything.
Yeah.
She also asks them for help potentially finding the rest of her crew and either their remains or finding them somewhere else, maybe living in the wilderness. And they do find the remains. Mm-hmm. They also find more trouble than they thought.
More trouble than they invested in.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where we ended up making Tremors jokes again.
Of course. All comes from underground.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Unfortunately, we don't have a shitload of guns to deal with it.
But they do smell like shit.
But this is also where it's around this time that we end up getting the reveal about Zach's father. And while Zach's father wasn't outright an asshole, he was very cold.
Not only was he cold, but it was only to Zach. We've seen him at this point a couple times. He's always, for some reason, affable, even approachable. He's always using a nice light voice to be inviting and comforting. But his actions betray his behaviors, essentially.
Mm-hmm. And of course, the other thing is Keytree ends up having one of her moments and ends up revealing that part of the reason she wants to get home is because she wants to marry Zach. And this is where both Zan and myself ended up busting out laughing because of what happened.
We all did. We all did.
And
He tells her to his face that he always thought them getting married was a given, since they made a promise about it when they were children. And he tells her that he's always loved her, but it's the most deadpan confessions ever. And Monk and I were laughing out loud, and then Monk goes, "Why do I feel like I'm being called out?" And I'm like, "Because, Monk, this is something we'd actually do with people we like."
yes.
And I have done with my girlfriend before. Monk has seen it. So, called out because it's something we'd fucking do.
Yep.
Yeah.
This is where I came to the realization that he is a straight man who knows he's the straight man.
Literally.
And that is, some of you have no idea how horrifying that is.
And yet very fucking delicious indeed.
But one of the other bits of, again, foreshadowing that's brought up is that Zach's father was working on memory transplants.
Yep, a way to record memories and store them for later so that you could transplant them and relive them whenever you wanted. And that, in fact, Zach's dad was working with Keetree's mom for the help of the medical help on the side of that.
But the last big revelation that happens in this part of the story is the fact that Keetree and Phoenicia's blood types are a perfect match.
And it's not just their blood types. Zach did some interesting and additional testing. They're the same person, were his exact words. And that's when it hits Kanata. That's actually when it hits Kanata. The one thing we all have in common, the one reason we were all thrown out here together, we're all clones. And with the passing of the Genome Registration Act, cloning is illegal. And if their originals ever found out that they had been cloning people, they would have gone to prison for forever. So the plan was to sacrifice the clones.
Because the original plan was make clones to be younger transfers for themselves, so that they could have some sort of pseudo immortality,
transferring from body to body forever.
And this is where I thought, oh, I have heard this before.
It's a well-worn concept in science fiction, especially the early days. And let's be honest, this is something that Asimov would do.
Yeah,
absolutely. I mean,
I'm pretty sure he did.
Remember that the whole premise of the show is called Lost in Space in English. It's going back to that old SF.
Yeah.
I brought up a Doctor Who audio adventure starting the 8th Doctor, where the cloning and the mind transference was hidden with a whole lot of god mythos. Big Finish. Paul McGann, fucking awesome in that.
Yeah.
But that's another story for another day.
But
matter of fact, I'd throw in a series, but they're an hour each at 8 episodes each season, so that's probably a nope for now.
Yeah, that would be really pushing it, and it's a little harder to riff an audiobook.
Yeah.
So even though I love the stuff that Graphic Audio puts out, I wouldn't use it for the show. Also, the stuff that Graphic Audio puts out would be way too goddamn long. It's great for when I'm doing my research. Not so great for a show. But one of the other things that ended up getting revealed is because with all this question of the cloning thing, there's one issue. Why is Luca intersex? Turns out that was by request from his biological father.
Yeah, his biological original is the better way to return it. His, which is this extended.
He wanted the perfect human being.
Okay, no. Long story short, we can't do because this is a chance for me to point out poor translation and localization, which has to be made.
Fair.
So, when a secret meeting of the Mastermind originals are all coming together to talk about the Genome Registration Act and how the kids are gone, the artist, and a very eccentric man, says that he wanted Luca to be intersex, and got an intersex child. And the big thing is the translation we get says something along the lines of to extend what they say in English is they go beyond the boundaries of gender. What it says in the subtitles says going beyond the boundaries of sex, being outside the boundaries of sex. But that is not what is said in Japanese, what is spoken. What is spoken is to become the ultimate being, a combination of man and woman. Not to go beyond, but to be a combination. Which I felt was a very disingenuous edit. Because, frankly, the idea of that is that it's the combination of the two that makes it an ultimate being, not that it's outside of.
See, this is why I just went with the perfect being thing and want to move on.
It's
because both
it is
are technically correct. Because you're not wrong either.
It's not correct though. The implication in Japanese is much more strict.
Yeah,
so it isn't correct to translate it the other way in English.
Translation can be a
regardless.
Funny business.
Yes, that is the reason Luca's intersex. So Luca is just, cool because Luca had an eccentric artist for a dad.
Yeah. But
so cool for the sake of being cool.
Basically.
Yeah. But while a lot of people are doing the "My life is a lie," the only
oh shit, would you lose a monk?
I don't know if
you're in rant.
Am I still here?
Come on, Discord. We were doing good.
Yeah, we lost
technology. It likes to fuck us.
Yes, it does.
Cut off mid rant. That's a message there, Zan.
No, I heard you, but for some reason I couldn't talk.
Yeah.
For a second I thought we both thought Discord was fucking with you again.
No. But at the same time, Zach and Keytree announced their engagement, and everybody takes it well.
Except for the fact that when Luca and the others question Zach about how much he loves Keytree, again, deadpan snarker. I've always loved her, and I'll love her forever. Except it's not nearly as vehement. It's I've always loved her. I'll love her forever. And
I've always loved her. I'm gonna love her forever and ever to the end of the days.
And everybody's like,
even more deadpan Dexter Loomis. Dramatic pause for 10 fucking minutes.
Let's not and say we didn't.
Yeah.
Essentially, Zach deadpans it, and so there are some comments made about him being a lady killer and being really, the big stud on board. And they turn this party into this giant thing, this giant celebration of, congratulations on the engagement, congratulations that we're surviving, congratulations to Paulina for joining. It's a big celebration.
Mm-hmm.
Big fucking partookie.
And as part of the party, they have the long-range spatial telescope has finally been fixed.
Mm-hmm.
And they point it at home. And Paulina gets to see home. And holy shit, that's not Earth, what the fuck?
And everybody else is like, but that is home. That's Astra.
Yep, the name of their planet is Astra, just like they named the ship after the particular motto on the dedication plaque of the bridge, per aspera ad astra, or through hardship to the stars. Which they constantly translated wrong up until the last time they talk about it.
Yeah, that was a pet peeve.
I was like, ah!
You were holding out on an aneurysm there, bud.
But it's after that revelation that we end up discussing a bit of history and alternate history, because it isn't time travel. It's just that there's only been half the actual story being told.
And obviously this was held, the information was withheld on purpose.
We'll get to that. We're not there yet.
The home planet, up until at that point, was never named.
Yes.
It was assumed there is a Earth-like situation in the future, but it was never outright said.
Yes. And Paulina talks about how her version of Earth went through everything we are familiar with, all the way up to collapsing economies and needing to find a new planet because they had discovered through long-range telescopes a meteor, an asteroid on the way that would wipe out the entire Earth.
And the Earth was already in a sorry state, because unlike in history as we know it, where the Cuban Missile Crisis did not escalate.
Well, no, that was on Astra. I'm talking about on Earth. Mm-hmm. On Earth, the Cuban Missile Crisis didn't escalate. Paulina's Earth is the same as our Earth up until it gets past 2022, where, now the author just has to make shit up on the fly. Mm-hmm. And they have to search for a new planet using these ARC ships. And they have to move all of the people off the planet. And all the kids are like, what the fuck? You would never be able to move all the people off the planet like that. You'd never have time. You wouldn't have the ships. Like, we had one more piece of technology. Wormhole tech. Which would get everybody off the planet in time. And they're like, oh. But then we learn about Astra's history, where the Cuban Missile Crisis did escalate to severe nuclear war.
As in World War motherfucking 3.
Mm-hmm. And after everybody was bombed to oblivion, they vowed never to use guns or bombs or anything like that again. And, well, at that point, they have their utopia world later in the future. Mm-hmm. But their history at 1963 is where everything divulges.
Yeah,
diverges, I should say. Excuse me.
That's the divergence. That's that's the split point.
And while all of this is happening, they are approaching the final planet before they get back to Astra, Gallum.
Which it's an anagram. The only one that I could see was Gleam.
Mm-hmm. Which only really fits because of all the crystals on the planet.
Mm-hmm. Which make it look like cities at night.
Mm-hmm.
They glow in the same way lights do from Earth when you look at it from the ISS on the dark side.
Mm-hmm. But it's at this point that Kanata's already figured out who the traitor is and had approached Zack and Shars to stage an ambush, but it was actually multi-layered chess in order to trick Shars to exposing himself.
Phrasing, but you get the idea, folks.
And he confirms that it was Shars because the enemy had to be the last person who entered the wormhole before, in order to confirm that everybody's going to die. Mm-hmm. Because the last person who went in is also a clone and needs to be disposed of, but their mission is to make sure everybody else is disposed of too. In the end, he asks Ares, "Do you remember the face of the last person to go into the wormhole?"
And of course,
and it was Shars.
Oh yeah, it was Shars.
And that was my "fuck you, I was right" moment because I felt something off about Shars from day one.
And that was my "I'm glad I didn't reveal that" moment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a lot of us were literally doing.
Fuck you, I was right, 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 fuck you, I was right.
A little too long. I'll shorten it up.
A little bit. But
I think it's a fine length.
it's Shars ends up revealing
Phrasing.
that
Boom, and both Xanatrix is out.
that
No, I'm not an imposter. It's you. It was always you. Although I think we've lost Monk's microphone again. Oh, there we go.
Shars ends up revealing that his original is Noah Vix, the king of Vixia.
Yep. And not only that, Shars reveals that his childhood friend was not, in fact, a commoner, but was Princess Saria herself, who also had a clone made.
Against her will, too.
Against her will, yes.
She was against that shit from day uno.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And that clone was Ares. Ares was eventually handed off to Princess Saria's handmaiden that was the surrogate mother for Ares, Emma, who is Ares' current mom.
Which certainly explains why she was the only one who wasn't an asshole when there were the meetings with all the parents.
Mm-hmm.
This also explains to a degree why why all the parents were such assholes, because they didn't see their kid as a kid. They saw it as replacement parts.
Yeah, it was pretty bad.
Mm-hmm. Shars has, after having this kind of revelation, we have a lengthy bit of grit those teeth moments when it comes to Kanata and Shars, because Shars views the mission that he was given as absolute, and that there's no value to his life after that.
Yeah, Shars has been conditioned from day one, knowing he would be a replacement that King Nyx would take over. On top of that, he has been conditioned and basically brainwashed and indoctrinated into being completely devoted to the mission.
Mm-hmm.
It was only Saria that kind of got him to act outside himself.
And Saria was pushed off a cliff by an assassin.
The assassin being one of the other members of the royal family branch families.
And for those wondering, why are you spoiling it now? It's literally one of the members of the royal family who was way behind on the line of succession and wanted to skip the fucking line because he a greedy motherfucker.
Mm-hmm.
I think he was the next on the line of succession.
Yeah,
he'd have been after Noah's Vix.
Yeah,
well, after Saria, technically.
Mm-hmm.
Technically speaking, he was not next in line after the king.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But Shars attempted to commit suicide by using a backup wormhole controller, because even though the wormhole controllers were supposed to be lost, apparently Vixia had kept a few in storage, and he was given one of them to to do the job.
Well, and that's because Vixia, it was revealed, was actually the country given to the Vix Corporation, the corporation that was responsible for the wormholes in the first place. Mm-hmm. And when everybody got to the new planet, Astra, they first made the decision to roll the calendar back 100 years.
Which unfortunately means that Paulina wasn't in stasis for 12 years. She was in stasis for 112 years.
Yes, which she takes...
She took that news... well,
no, she took it poorly, very poorly.
about as well as you can take the fact that you're 134 years old.
Let's put it this way. Yeah, fucking admitting this.
You are coping and seething. you're seeing. Yes, you're coping and seething. The truth it is scalding, and now you are molding and coping so hard. Coping and seething.
Am I wrong?
You're not wrong, but sending you that clip is either the best or worst decision I've made.
And the answer is yes, and you know it.
Yeah.
But essentially, the wormholes were all supposed to be closed by the VIX Corporation as well. But they kept one or two open for their own personal use in case they ever needed it, along with all of the wormhole generators. Mm-hmm. Which is part of what enabled Shars to create that issue. And then the crew calls him out on, you let us go through the wormhole while we still had our crush suits on. Why didn't you wait till we got to the cabin? And he's like, because of Ares. The replacement for Saria is right there. She needed to survive and be given back to King Vix so that I can just die with more than some ignominious reputation to my name. At least I'll die having done something good. And
It's all kinds of fucked up at this point, in case you haven't noticed.
But
yeah.
this is all being done in the presence of the one guy who refuses to let anybody die on his watch.
Mm-hmm. He activates the wormhole generator, starts moving the wormhole towards himself. Kanata runs directly to the wormhole, or towards it. Mm-hmm. And everybody's like, Kanata, no! And Kanata uses his anti-grav boots, which he hadn't used for most of the show because they were broken. And it was only a couple episodes
ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, until a couple of episodes prior to the this confrontation, where they were repaired again. And so he jumps over, he goes to stop Shars, and his arm starts getting sucked into the wormhole.
And of course, Shars goes, oh my god, let me turn it off! Turns it off, and
his arm's not there anymore.
Ow! Fuck.
Mm-hmm.
Shars has to give him a hand from that point on.
God damn it.
You could almost say that Shars is a handy guy in that respect.
Well, Zan, if they can't find you handsome, they'll sure as shit find you handy.
Is this deja vu?
Right?
I'm getting the most ridiculous case of Dijon mustard.
No, it's Vujade. Gotta hand it to him, though.
Yeah. But now, fortunately, Kitri is able to make it so that Kanata doesn't bleed to death.
Yep, he has his suit set to a maximum tightness on the side of his right arm. Zack sets that, and then she ties a tourniquet to get him back to the Astra, where she has to do the finishing touches of an amputation. All those things where you tie up and clamp the blood vessels and all that without local anesthesia.
Folks, there's a reason why I just made the statement of ow, fuck.
Yeah, nothing makes me scream like nothing makes me squirm like surgery. But they just to do a bit of follow through, they show Kanata's arm floating above what's left of Earth.
In case you were wondering, yeah,
the ice ball is Earth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's confirmed. That Hoth looking planet, that's our planet after
after the asteroid hit.
Yep.
Plunging into an ice age.
But after getting enough food to get out of Gallum and being able to reconcile what had happened, because part of the reason Kanata saved him was of a promise that Shars had made, that if Kanata ever got his own ship, that he would be his second in command.
Yep. Just like Zach made a promise that he'd be a pilot if Kanata was able to get his ship in 7 years.
Mm-hmm. And
But they have to come up with one more plan to get home safely, because if they arrive,
Well, if they arrive unannounced, the people running the cloning the cloning brigade, they don't want to be they don't want to be found out. They don't want to go to jail.
mm-hmm.
Yep. So they drop out of orbit a little bit early to send all of the camp logs, explanations, and everything to Ares' mom, the only adult they know they can trust, to give to the lieutenant that was working with Olgar's brother before.
Mm-hmm.
And then the dominoes start to topple. They come out right in front of Earth in the end, or in front of Astra in the end, excuse me, and are confronted by gunboats. You could tell they're gunboats. There were some big guns on them.
Yep.
And we don't know if they're being confronted by some private military from the originals or the government of the Astra planet. And that's when we get the dominoes falling. This lieutenant going around arresting people like Noah Vix and the guy who killed Saria and everybody else involved with the cloning stuff, including Marco Esposito. And then finally, we cut back to the Astra, the ship, and the Astra military.
And the military,
Yeah, I have to make that particular distinction because Astra's the name of the ship and the planet.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
But the ships hail them on an emergency band. Can you respond? And they open up their emergency band and respond, and everything's hunky dory. They get to come back down. All the originals are arrested. They get issued new birth certificates and everything so that they're legal people.
Mm-hmm.
Kanata gets a really cool robotic prosthetic and even writes a book. And everybody basically does great stuff with their schooling and with their experiences to become better people.
I did have a bit of a laugh.
Additionally, I really love the whole dominoes falling thing, and I also love that the military had to contact them on an emergency band, firing the Chekhov's gun of their communicators have been cut. Mm-hmm. Remember, I was screaming at the screen there when they were trying to hail the ship. I'm like, your communicators are still blown, dudes. And
but the emergency band only has so much distance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so once everything was handled and they got all back to Earth, a museum purchased the Astra, the Ark ship, and kept it in a museum.
Mm-hmm.
And the rest of them started to do their own things with their own lives.
Yeah, pretty much every one of them.
They go on their lives. The people are the fuckers are arrested, and everything is A-okay. 7 years later.
Literally.
Yeah. What you describe happens. The shy lady with the mom says, "You will not be noticed." Well, she has a singing career. People have books. People have successes. People get married.
Keytree became a famous model. The problem is, Shars became an even bigger celebrity. Kind of stealing the thunder there.
Yeah, Shars actually becomes the next king of Vix, and also gets all the walls taken down and starts exposing all the history of Astra and Earth.
Which maybe I was wrong with making the Vixia comparison to House Davion. Maybe I should have making a comparison to Comstar. Just without the word of Blake. I don't like the word of Blake.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also revealed that the guy who was responsible for the assassination attempt was Noah's younger brother.
Yep, he would be next in line if Noah had no heirs.
Mm-hmm.
But they're both arrested, so they're both fucked.
Yeah.
7 years later, we actually skip to. We not only get all this fun stuff about models and marriages and Shars becoming the most charismatic king on the face of the planet. We finally get to Olgar visiting his original in prison. And this is where I got to point out the thing I had already pointed out to finally gave a statement to how I pointed out that all of the originals had the same voice actors as their clones. Just speaking with different inflections on their voice.
Yeah.
Especially noticeable is Kitri and her mom, and then later on Phoenicia and Kitri, who both have to be voiced by the exact same person because now Phoenicia is no longer a younger Kitri, which also funny enough, the younger Kitri in flashbacks was voiced by the same person who voiced Phoenicia. For obvious reasons.
This was a thing that's exclusive to the dub. This wasn't a thing in the Japanese version.
Yes, this is the thing exclusive to the English dub. In the Japanese version, everybody had different voices. Which, honestly, I think that was actually a great boon for the...
Yeah, well, we'll get to it because, we're going to go long here, guys. Let's not go too long. But are we at the discussing the thing part?
We have to finish the story first.
No, let's finish the story, then we get the discussion and the good shit.
I'd say the other thing to note is that first off, Luca is dressing more like a woman.
Yeah.
And does seem to have a on again off again friendship with Olgar, who has since become a journalist and kind of being put in a surrogate big brother role for our favorite cinnamon bun. Although I will give him credit, he does have a sweet ride. But the only people who Yunhua, it kind of bookends with Yunhua's concert. The only people who didn't attend were Kanata, Zack, and Shars. There was also the revelation that Kanata had proposed, but Kanata had used the money that he had made from his book to buy back the Astra.
Yep.
Basically.
And Zack had helped get him a new arm, which looks a lot better than what was initially proposed of just a giant clamp.
Yep.
A
giant claw clamp that was proposed by Shars, remember? The biggest thing is that one of the jokes is you didn't need to put an electric ear pick in this thing. It's a Swiss Army arm.
Yeah. Which is way better than Glenn Quagmire's Swiss Army,
Yeah, let's not say we didn't. But their goal is taking the ship and going off into space to see places that they could put the wormholes in to allow for full-on colonization. And it's a big deal that Shars came because, well, he's a king, but in doing this, he pretty much dropped the throne.
He said that he has every right to do it as a king because he doesn't run anything himself anyway. He's like, I'll leave that shit to the ministers.
Yeah.
Essentially, is what that boiled down to. Yeah,
but it bookends with them taking off. And this time it's actually the Astra is fully stocked, so they don't have to do a bunch of scavenging back and forth. And with the wormhole, if things go south, they have an easy way to get back.
Yeah, and they're using wormholes to now travel to other planets too. On top of that, with only 3 of them, that's a lot more food and water to go around instead of the initial 9.
Yep.
And then later 10 when Polina was added. So, you know,
I should
food
note,
goes
by the way,
further.
Paulina decided to become a school teacher.
At the same school they all went to, because that's where Funi's going now, and she's one of Paulina's students.
And it ends up bookending with both the song juxtaposed with Kanata and company going off into space.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, that's why that whole second season announcement was so weird, because there is literally nowhere else you can take the story.
And I know that some of you are probably going to say something like, well, you could always do one about their travels in space. I'm like, but...
Yeah, but it's not Lost in Space anymore. It's exploring space. You're basically turning it into 3 dudes and a Starship Enterprise.
Well, and not only that, though, what would be the point of the story? What would be the messages that would be taught? The messages that were taught in this story were all packaged and complete in that one story. You know, things about your origin not defining who you are, that you can be better than what others have expected for you if you definitely work towards your dreams. Mm-hmm. Things that those who work together will be more likely to survive. All of these things that came from this story were neatly packaged in that one season, in that one story. Mm-hmm. And sure, compared to the manga, they probably flashed past some things that weren't necessarily of the biggest importance. They got the essence, they got the core, and that was what was vital.
And it's for that reason that trying to do a second season is ultimately, it would be pointless, and it would ultimately be to the detriment of the story.
It'd be redundant. Yeah, there's a couple things that were left open-ended, but a lot of the stuff, as Zan pointed out, superfluous, open-ended.
And I think we've seen cases where a second season was added that wasn't needed, and it ended up bringing the story as a whole down as a result.
Yeah, cheapened the experience.
Mm-hmm. But with that said, I think it's as good a time as any for us to go into our final judgments.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen watching here, and good brothers of the Parliament, it is time that we bring forth our judgments on whether Astra Lost in Space be weeb or be scrub. Now, of special note, though Brother Shades was not able to attend this day, he did leave us with his own verdict. And Brother Shades has emphatically announced that Astra Lost in Space is weeb. With that, I move to you, Brother Matty. What be your verdict?
This again, Stadler World of Dwarf. This was bad. This is horrible. I don't that bad. It's awesome. It was fun. And ultimately, that's the point of any kind of entertainment. You need to have a little bit of fun. Lots of good stuff in this. I loved the love. There's a lot of love in this one. Love that the voice actors played not only the main characters, but their asshole parents. That was something neat from the dub to do, just as an extra thing in there that was ultimately may not have been necessary, but absolutely a good fucking call. The story, like I said, we're guilty of saying, especially on Tokaris, especially with Kamen Rider Saber and Kamen Rider Drive, where they say, "Oh, it gets better after X amount of time." I'm sorry, but it needs to get good now for me to keep my interest. So this will be a little bit off rails. Mm-hmm. But After about 10 episodes of Saber the big thing with Toei saying, "Hey, no more fan subs." Boo. That's a long story there. The first thing I confessed with everybody, and I believe I was public back then, I will be public with it now. I was not upset about following up on Saber. I was like, they had lost me at a few episodes in. I was like, all right, if we don't finish it, I could not care less. 3 episodes into Astra Lost in Space, I was feeling the same thing, where you are throwing a lot of red flags, a lot of shit that I don't like. And had I been watching on my own, that would have been it. I would not have watched any of that shit. Yeah. Just noticed too. Oh god.
Welcome everyone to our final judgment phase. The always late and always gay Brother Doku. Maddie, continue your judgment, please.
Let's do that. Okay. So at that point, here I was checked out, ready. Okay, next time I'm riffing, but this is scrub in my mind. A few episodes later, the second session happens, and I'm like, okay, hell yeah, I'm in. To the end of the episode, I'm jumping around making predictions like everybody else, and I'm hitting the Razor Fist FU I was right button along with Mildra. We became invested. Took a hot minute. It shouldn't have taken a hot minute, but I'm glad I stuck around for it. That being said, should get past a few of the quirks, the ditzy blonde and the cunt. She gets better. She gets better. It's just it's to an extreme that will turn you off if you just let it get to you. Beyond that, thumbs up. The vote is Weeb.
And with that, we have 2 votes of Weeb, one from our absentee brother Shades, and one from brother Matty. Now, let's point the spotlight at Mr. Fake and Gay, or Late and Gay, as the case may be. Doku, unmute yourself. Tell me your judgment. Astra Lost in Space. Be it Weeb or be it Scrub.
Oh, well, first off, hello. I am Late and the Gay, as usual. My vote is Weeb.
All right, and do you want to expand upon that, or do you just want to leave it there?
Oh, well, I mean, I could, if you really want me to.
Do we want him to, Monk, or is he just going to bullshit us?
You're getting the Sid 60 treatment.
Oh, 60 seconds. Oh, hold on.
Let
me get the timer.
All right, in that case.
I've got a timer ready already. So
you have 60 seconds.
All right, first off, before you hit the timer, cheers. I will drink.
That shit in, bud.
Okay. You have 60 seconds starting now.
All right, so it definitely has its issues. There are pacing issues. There are tropes. Yeah, that no one can really avoid that. I do like the fact that they stick to the Lost in Space mantra where they're jumping around. You see different planets, different situations. And it's definitely a quite the interesting take on let's toss a bunch of high schoolers into an unfamiliar situation, which we've seen plenty of times before, but you don't necessarily see it done quite this way. The ending is predictable, but it works. The only real gripe I have about it is I would have preferred maybe an extra episode or 2 at the end, or maybe make the pilot a 40, 50-minute episode first. They could have built it and fleshed out the world a little bit more. But all things said, it's really not that bad of a watch. I know it gets a little bit of gripe and criticism, but it's decent. It's worth watching.
1. Time. Okay.
Boom. 60 on the dot. There you go.
Okay.
I
So
usually don't do that, but I know you have a tendency to talk yourself
Ramble.
in circles. So
By the way, first and last episodes were 40-minute episodes, so their attention to detail was thrown into it. I'll agree with that as well on some of the tropes and all that stuff, but the ending is predictable but satisfying, and satisfying needs to be the key word there.
yeah. And with that, we have 3 votes of Weeb. Monk, your verdict.
So, for me, the thing that I take away from this is that it feels like a bit of is that we have an old school kind of story with new school tech. It is amusing to me that that again, for one, you would think that there would be a model version of the Astra. Maybe I haven't been looking hard enough, but I couldn't find one.
I couldn't either.
You'd think that there would be one, especially with how the ship is animated.
And modular. You could get a modular ship.
But a lot of times when we get science fiction and anime, it's not all that common that we get hard SF. And while I wouldn't say that Astra is full-on hard SF like, say, Planets, it certainly leans more to that than other forms of science fiction. Especially since the closest thing that we have to a fantastical is the whole thing with the wormholes, and even that isn't all that far out when you consider that wormhole use has been used in science fiction for over a century.
Exactly.
Now, I will admit that the first couple episodes are a bit slow going, and I think that's because of the fact that there's so much that it has to establish. I know I made a running gag about foreshadowing, but I can't emphasize enough how much this show loves to set up and follow through its Chekhov's gun. And in fact, I'd actually say you could use this as a teaching tool on what you're supposed to do with setup and payoff.
You could call this Chekhov's arsenal.
The Arsenal of Freedom?
Arsenal gear?
They're Arsenal versus Manchester United.
No.
No.
Can we Dave him for that one?
Nah.
I think it should be Dave for that, but never mind.
No, I have a worse punishment. You having to watch a Tottenham game.
Oh, fuck. God. I've rather watch NXT 2.0 while it's still shit.
Well, at least Tottenham fans know that they're shit.
Fair.
The whole thing of singing "You're nothing special, we lose every week." But getting back on the rails, when it comes to the audio, it does what it needs to. I can't say that it goes out of its way to establish an identity, but it doesn't get in the way. I will admit that when it comes to the opening, and to a certain extent the ending, the visuals are pulling more of the weight.
Mm-hmm.
Like the song is all right, but it does feel like it's just kind of there. Whereas especially since the visuals go all out with color setups.
Yeah.
That being said, the only other thing to say is I know we've talked about this a lot, but that whole thing of announcing a second season when there's more footage was just fucking weird. And I still don't know why that announcement was made. As it feels like a backhanded way to try and beg for more footage.
Beg for more footage and thus beg for the writer to write more. When he's already gone far beyond it at this point.
He's done. As a done, and done.
I haven't checked on.
Money for something else. Done.
Yeah. But for me, I think that the mix of doing hard SF and being able to set up all of its plot lines and resolve most of them gets this a vote of scrub. Not scrub. What the fuck am I saying?
You almost fucked up.
Yes,
but...
I did. And if you want to blame anything, blame my technical problems over the last week.
I can give him the benefit of the doubt there.
Yeah.
Mildred, technical problems aside, that's got to be a drink, sir.
You drink anyway, Doku.
Yeah,
I drink, but Mildred doesn't always drink. But that's a drink, sir.
It's been a while since we had one of those, huh?
Yeah.
By the way, I hit the button there, Doku. I'm live streaming the Win so the buttons are heard.
But yeah, this is getting weeb. Anybody who's a fan of SF should be watching this.
Yeah.
All right. 4 of our good brothers have voted for weeb. As for myself, as I stated at the beginning of this, I had a distinct advantage. I had already read the manga, and thus I had to throw monkey wrench after red herring in order to keep these guys from accidentally squeaking something out of me to expose the plot. It was a fun little game of cat and mouse. I think I did a pretty good job. I know that Mildred felt appreciative about it. I know that Maddie has called me a dick on more than one occasion for it.
Because you're a dick.
I'm an asshole, not a dick. Get it right.
Same goddamn diff.
No. Assholes shit on people. Dicks fuck assholes.
He has a point. You can't really argue with that.
The ultimate thing here, yes, there are some minor issues here or there. Yes, there's my own personal issue with translation and not being what is said in Japanese. Yes, there are some rough patches in pacing and plot. But all of these things are, in the end, vestigial. They are transient. They are not something that will continue to pull your focus while you are enjoying the ride you are on. The visuals are fantastic. The animation, very well done. The 3D compositing, even better well done. It's some very impressive 3D compositing for 2018.
Almost seamless.
Mm-hmm.
Which is a good thing.
Especially the Astra itself. It's almost entirely 3D animated, so it's very good compositing there since you see the cast inside it so often. Sound, as Monk said, the musical score was not very... It wasn't super in-your-face, this is Astra Lost in Space, unlike some of the other things we've done. But it's also not like what Vox Machina did. It's not generic either. It's enough. It is enough, I guess, is the best way to put it.
Yeah.
And with the opening and ending, the visuals are definitely holding that weight. They're going to carry that weight, Monk.
Mm-hmm.
Especially the ending. Except for the few times where it did an extended ending where it was following the characters through the credits, we always got some different sets of scenes. And we always got to see more of the star map as we went on and on. And it was always interesting to see what those little scenes meant compared to what we saw in the episode. And I know that the one that struck me best was near the end. It was the ending right after they were revealed, their childhoods and the fact that they're clones. And you got to see pictures of them as children with their parents. And you got to see the children being genuine and the parents being false. In just those snapshot pictures. Yeah. It was really poignant. It was a very, very beautiful juxtaposition, and I loved that. And along the same lines, the choice of the casting for both the originals and their clones being the same voice actor in English was obviously a deliberate choice. This wasn't like, oh, we don't have enough money, just have them voice their originals too. This is, well, we know it's originals and clones and a whodunit, and you have to make all these guesses. Here's a little more foreshadowing for you. It's just another sprinkle.
Is what it is.
Yeah. In Japanese, everybody was voiced by different characters. The originals were not the same voices as their clones. Mm-hmm. Which I feel was a bit of a lost opportunity for the Japanese, because I know that they could have done it just as well. But regardless of that, everything meshes together into an entertaining ride. Sure, the beginning's a little bumpy, but the beginning of every roller coaster is slow. You're getting cranked up to the top of the hill. Once you hit the top of the hill, it's all ups and downs from there. And so I fully embrace the fact that having read the manga, which to me was definitely weeb, this adaptation, this anime, is absolutely weeb along with it. And thus, with 5 votes of weeb and 0 votes of scrub, this parliament finds Astra Lost in Space to be weeb.
And again, we need more of this. We need more of this type of SF. But since beggars can't always be choosers, I will take what I can get. Now, with that judgment rendered, it is time for one of our other traditions that we've started at the end of these shows.
I want to say it. Can I say it?
Go ahead.
Wheel of morality, turn, turn, turn. Tell us the lesson that we should learn.
So, I've got the wheel ready to go. Let's see what we get.
Spin to win.
And our next project is going to be Record of Ragnarok.
Oh, Jesus.
Oh no.
Let me see if that's on the places. I'll use Just Watch to find out. Record of Ragnarok. It should be. It's 2021. It's got 2 seasons, though, Monk. Apparently.
That's odd.
I know. Again, are we getting another Astra situation already?
Oh wow.
Let's see here.
If
Record of Ragnarok is only on Netflix.
Is it actually 2 seasons that would go over our limit, or is it another one of those weird ass cases?
Season 2 isn't out yet.
That being the case, I think it's still legal.
It is. It's 12 episodes.
So it still counts. If season 2 was already out, then I would have done a respin.
Okay. Let me see when season 2 is supposed to come out, though.
Has there even been an announced date for season 2? Because I don't remember one.
That's what I'm trying to find out. What? Okay, so the writer for season 2 has already been announced, so there's definitely a season 2 announced for sure.
But it hasn't gone gold, is what it sounds like.
Yeah. The main staff is returning from the first season, with Umeta Company producing the series alongside Graphinica and Yuka Yamada writing the scripts alongside Fudeyasu. It is set to premiere sometime in 2023.
We're good.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're good.
So the real question is, who has Netflix?
I believe I do. Wait, you don't?
I don't have any streaming service. Why would I?
No. Fair.
Yar har.
Yo ho ho and never mind.
Yo ho ho and something you have in your hand?
Oh wait, hold on. Yes. There you go. Cheers. By the way.
Cheers indeed.
Yeah. But that will be the topic for next time. And of course, I'm gonna be kept busy, since now that I'm out of the wilderness with the technical problems I was having, it's back to the interviewing bonanza for this monk.
Mm-hmm.
Because I have Scavenger, Just Jace, the finale of our look at Emberwind, and Black Fist Publishing this week.
Yep.
Of course, just because Emberwind ends this Friday doesn't mean the Valley ends, because we already have lined up what's going to be the next season, as well as something that's a one-off that, as a historian, I felt I had to cover.
Indeed.
By the way, Riker Ragnarok is available in Canada. We're good to go, boys.
Nice.
Okay, that's one bullet dodged. So, until next we meet. Go ahead.
Before we go, that is something that I forgot to announce both about Seven Knights Revolution and this. These both are available on streaming sources. In fact, I believe Astra is still on Crunchyroll. Let me just check that real quick. It's also it can be watched on Hulu. Astra Lost in Space is actually on Hulu as well. So I know that we've had issues with a lot of the stuff that we've reviewed, where you can't find it either for a reasonable price or at all, and thus that necessitates Yarhar. Seven Knights Revolution is available on Crunchyroll. Astra Lost in Space was available on Funimation, which means it'll probably be rolled into Crunchyroll eventually, and is available on Hulu. There are ways for you to watch it that are somewhat reasonable. Mm-hmm. And I just wanted to make sure we got that point across this episode as well.
Yes. And if somebody still wants to sail the high seas, we're not going to stop you. We're not going to cast judgment. Just make sure that you are properly protected when doing so.
Wear protection in them high seas. It gets pretty wet and dangerous.
I should know. I almost put a couple of computers doing that.
Is that the reason why every hurricane has a female name?
Oh, why? Mildred!
Monk, you just want a wet and wild ride.
Oh, no. Both of you are terrible.
Hey.
Look who's talking!
That should say something coming from me.
Mr. Codpiece, look who's talking!
Hey, that was done for the sake of lore building.
Bullshit!
It was very deep and sophisticated lore.
You know, Doku, I'm breaking out in hives because I'm allergic to this much bullshit.
I said, very deep and sophisticated lore.
But getting back on the rails. Until next we meet. My name is Mildra. I am your gaming monk. Stay fucking frosty, everybody.